at Devoxx Belgium, and I'm talking to Chris from Twitter. I'm so sorry, not from Google.
Not yet.
Maybe one day.
No, you never know.
So you're talking about Twitter and growl. So growl is a runtime?
No.
No?
So
maybe you should tell me all about it.
Yeah, maybe I should. So Hotspot, the JVM in OpenJDK, there is something called JIT compilers. It's basically the compilers that compile Java bytecode to native code that's then executed just in time, right, during runtime. And and growl is a JIT compiler. And the main difference between the existing ones and growl is that, so the existing ones are called C1 and C2, and they're written in C++. But growl is written in Java. That's the main difference. And it's just a different approach of doing it, and it has advantages, but also disadvantages. And I never really worked on the project. I was never part of Oracle Labs, but I'm involved with the project for many years now, and I'm just trying to push the project because I think it's the future.
Okay, so compared to the C1 and C2 garbage collector,
No,
sorry,
compilers. Yes,
sorry.
yeah.
You can tell I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, I know a little bit.
How does it work?
How does it work? Well, so the way it works in the JVM is we had to add, since it's written in Java, with the C++ written ones, you just compile it when you compile the JVM, and they're just linked in, and that's how it works. With growl, it's slightly different. Since it's in Java, it needs an API to talk to the VM, and vice versa. The VM needs to tell growl, hey, I want you to compile that method. And so we introduced something called JVM CI, which means JVM Compiler Interface, in JDK 9 under CHAP 243. And when you have JDK 9 today, there's actually a growl version in JDK 9, but you can also download like an up-to-date version from GitHub and build it and then run it with an existing JDK.
You mentioned some of the advantages and disadvantages. What are some of the advantages of the growl?
It's much easier to understand. It has to do with C2. I go into that a little bit in my talk. C2 is very old, so the code is very complex. It's a good compiler, but the code is very complex, and it's written in C++. And these days, I haven't been at the university for a long time, but I think these days they're not really C++ courses anymore. But people still do Java, right? It's maybe with the young kids, it's an old language by now, but it's something that's still taught. So it's just the accessibility, or it's just easier to approach growl than C2. That's one of the main advantages.
What about the disadvantages?
Disadvantages are, it's like the biggest advantage is also the biggest disadvantage. It's written in Java, so that means you have to, basically, it's a metacircular problem, right? It's written in Java, but you run on top of a JVM. So if there's something called a bootstrap involved, because as soon as the compiler starts working, it's Java code itself, so it gets hot itself and it compiles itself. So you have this bootstrap going on. That's one of the big issues, which can be solved with AOT compilation. You compile it ahead of time, like which we did. There's an AOT feature now in JDK 9 exactly for that purpose. And then the second biggest issue is it's using Java heap memory to do compilation, right? It's allocating from the Java heap. So we need, and we don't have a good solution for that yet. You need some kind of heap isolation between the compiler and the application. The worst case that can happen is that part is actually advantage as well, because you can in a container world, memory is being used anyway with C2 as well. It's just native memory, and you don't see it, and you can't really control it that well. With growl, you can control it because it's part of a Java heap, but it takes away from the application, at least when it's compiling. Not all the time, but when it's compiling. And the worst case that can happen is that you compile a big method, takes a long time, and you get an out of memory in your application. That could happen. So we're still working on this, but we need some kind of a heap isolation between the two.
Thank you very much.
Sure.